Palworld is a great game, but managing your pals is a struggle for many players. It takes a lot of trial and error to work around the early access bugs and understand just how to get your pals to do what you want. Luckily for you, I have spent a lot of time trialing and a lot more time erroring, so look no further for someone that can show you how to manage your pal and make an efficient base. My name is Renu, and in this video, we are going to go over the very basics of pal management, including what makes an ideal base, how to get your pals to do what you want. I'm going to walk you through these topics by showing you how to build an ore farm, and by the end of this video, you should not only know exactly how to build an ore farm, but have the basics to build any kind of base that you like. Before we get started, do me a big favor and like and subscribe to the video. Helps me out a ton and you will learn a lot. Copper is the most important resource for the overwhelming majority of the game. Basically useless until level 10, but after that you need it for absolutely everything. So it's very important to have a good copper farm up and running, because at least for me, it's always nice to spend a little more time exploring and having fun rather than manually farming like this. Let's go ahead and build that pal box, and don't worry, you can always build and disassemble it. You'll get the resources back immediately, and so that's going to allow you to fine-tune exactly how you want your boundary to be. I know exactly where this base needs to be. It's going to be right next to my chest over here that I put, and that's going to be somewhere like right here. So if you can see over here, you'll see that my boundary does not go past the cliff, at least not for too much. It does go past here a little bit, but the likelihood that your pals get stuck here are pretty low. And we have all my copper nodes within the boundary. So this is ideal. This is exactly what I want. So this chest has all the resources I need. What are the bare minimums you need for a base? Well, the bare minimums you need are beds, pal beds that is, and you need a feed box. Otherwise, your pals will not have places to sleep, they will lose sanity, and they will stop working efficiently. They'll also be more susceptible to injury and disease, which we'll cover later. So I'm going to build a very, very basic base over here. We're not going to make it fancy. I'm going to make sure that I have all my beds here. And so if you are building a second base, then your pal box level is 10, and that means you should have about 10 pals to work with. We will scale this up as we go through this video, but 10 beds will do. We also need a feed box. If I'm building an ore farm, it is much more advantageous to me for me to place my feed box near where the majority of my pals are going to work. And the reason why you want the feed box near where your pals are working is so that they spend less time walking from where they work to the feed box and back to where they work. So I'll put that over here. And that's the bare minimum you need to have a base up and running. In terms of structure anyway, what we also need are pals, and we also need food for the feed box. So let's go ahead and get the most basic food. So we're going to go ahead and put the food that most people run with, which are red berries. Don't worry, we'll cover food a little later, right? And we'll put that in the feed box. And now we're going to go ahead and assign our pals. These cativas have a work suitability of mining level 1. Now, mining level 1, unfortunately, is not going to be able to mine these copper nodes, and I can show you that over here. Let's go ahead and assign the cativas, and the cativas will not know what to do. They'll eat, they'll wander. There's nothing for them to do. If I did place a stone pit, let's say, then they will mine here because that's all they can do. So when it comes to picking the right pals for the job, there are a handful of factors, but the first we should talk about is work suitability. Higher levels of work suitability means the pals are better at doing these jobs. And in the case of mining, pals with level 2 mining or higher are the only ones that are able to farm copper nodes. Pals you can get early on with mining level 2 are tombats and demuds. Tombats are pretty easy to catch because they are low level. You can catch them as low as level 8 to 10, and they appear in many starting islands just during the nighttime. It is a little random, so definitely try every night until you are able to catch about 3. Demuds are a little harder to catch early on. They have their levels in the teens as far as I remember, and they appear in desert regions, most notably near the Forgotten Island and Icewind Island respawn points, as well as the Seabreeze Archipelago. It is in the volcanic island to the west of it. I think these guys are a little higher level though. One thing I want to mention here is that Digtoises are actually bugged right now when it comes to mining without supervision. They do have mining level 3 and they look like they would be ideal miners, but they are bugged. So I would avoid using them for at least patch 0.1.3. You could see my version number on the bottom right hand corner. If you want your pals to behave in ways you expect, then picking pals with fewer conflicting jobs is ideal. So take Tombat and Mamorant as examples. Tombat has Gathering 2, Mining 2, and Transporting 2, and Mamorant has Planting 2, Lumbering 2, and Mining 2. Now, if I assign both of them, watch what happens. Tombat will go to farm the copper nodes. However, Mamorant, because he spawns closer to the palbox and the trees are closer to him, he will be logging the trees first. Mamorant doesn't know that I want him to only farm the copper nodes, and I don't really care about trees. Likely you don't either because logging sites are easy to build. So instead, what I would have to do is assign Mamorant manually to the copper nodes. I can do this by throwing him onto the copper ores. From here, after he eats, he will be farming copper nodes. Now, the only problem with this is that pals tend to forget this programming from time to time, and you'll find yourself having to direct him again and again. This sucks even more when you have a busy base with so many pals or multiple Mamorants. The whole point of our ore farm is to not have to spend so much time farming or managing our pals manually. So Mamorants are not really ideal in an ore farm, especially when you have trees closer to your pal box. So that said, Tombats may have a conflicting job with gathering, but it's easy to get around this issue by simply building your plantations in places farther than the copper nodes that you want Tombat to farm. The last thing I want to mention about conflicting jobs and work suitability is that usually in your bases with copper nodes, if you want your miners to only mine copper nodes, then you're not going to want stone pits in your base. If you have stone pits in your base and you assign your miners, they will go to work at the closest facility, no matter if they are more suited to be working on the copper nodes. Let's say I assign the Cativas as well. See, they're not smart. They don't know that I want the Cativas to work on the stone pits and the Tombats to mine the copper nodes. Let's try assigning them in a different order. So I'll assign the Cativas first, then the Tombats. Now what happens here is what you would expect. Cativas will mine the stone and then Tombats will mine the ore. The problem happens when you come back to your base, then you're not exactly sure what's going to happen. They may shuffle jobs, or maybe they're taking a break. If they're ever taking a break, then the Tombats are going to hop onto the stone pit. So the stone pit isn't ideal to have in your copper farm because stone isn't really necessary in a copper farm. Personally, and this is what I did when I was low level, I would have my copper farm and I will have my main base of operation. And my main base is where I would produce things like guns, like weapons, like pal spheres. These are the things that use stone. So let's go ahead and assign our Tombats and our Hangyus. The reason why I like Hangyus is because he doesn't have a lot of conflicting jobs with what I want him to do. I want him to transport the ore into a nearby storage. Now the reason why this storage is near my pal box is for this reason usually. If I don't have my furnaces in this space to refine my ores into ingots, then I'm going to need to transfer my ore into my main base where I do have my furnaces. Ore is really heavy. You can see over here that ore is about 8 pounds. Wood is only 3 and stone is only 3 as well. Very likely once you pick up your whole stack of ore, you're going to be over encumbered and you can't move. Now the easiest way to get around this is by going to your inventory, dropping your ore, picking it up, and then using your pal box. So you have to like drop, pick up, and this is harder and harder to do the farther your storage is from your pal box. Another thing you can do is to craft a grappling gun. Grappling guns don't really have that much utility outside of allowing you to move while you're encumbered. So I have my ore, I can't reach my pal box, I could do the dropping thing, or I could just use my grappling gun, hit the ground near it, and I'm able to travel to my base, and I'm able to smelt my ore. Post-edit Rednew here. The other reason why you want storage Let's say you have your furnaces here, you have your refinery, and you want to smelt your ore into ingots. If you want to smelt your ore into ingots, they need to be in a storage. They can't be on the ground. You won't have access to those resources while they are on the ground. If you want to save yourself time from running around all your nodes, collecting all the ore and being over encumbered and all that because they're really heavy, you ought to have transporters. Now, what happens when you have multiple storages? Let's say I have a storage over here by my bed and I want to use it exclusively as an equipment trunk. I don't want my hanguse to transfer the ore into this trunk because it's not near my palbox. If I want to prevent the hanguse from transferring ore over here, then what I can do is I could fill the empty slots with gold coins and take the ore. And that way, the hanguse will not transfer the ore over to this box. They will instead transfer the ore over to that one where there is available space or where there is ore already. So you'll see this hanging over here. He will take the ore, not to this trunk because there's no available spot, but he will take it to over there. And the reason why you want to use gold coins and not, let's say, stone or fiber or whatever, is because when you're building things, they will use resources randomly and they may use the resources in this box. So gold is very good to use because gold isn't used for anything in your base unless you have merchants. And if you have merchants and you're buying things in your base, well, they'll use the gold coins first in your inventory. The next thing I want to talk about is how you can scale this base and what you should do. So we already know that for mining, right, you ought to have at least like 3 miners and maybe 3 transporters, and you probably want maybe an even number of these. I'm going to assume, hey, you're level 10 right now, or at least your pal box is level 10, and so you don't have that many spaces to assign so many pals. What can we do so that we don't have to be constantly returning to this base, and instead we just come here whenever we want a lot of ore? The first expansion I would do if I was in early game and if I was at level 10, and what I did personally is I would make berry plantations. Berry plantations are nice early on because you have pals that are not super demanding on food, and because berries, once they're harvested, will automatically be placed into the feed box. That way, you'll never have to worry if your pals are being fed or not. You can go out and explore, have fun, and whenever you do need ore to smelt, you can go ahead and pick it up from the box and take it back to base. So let's go ahead and assign our farmers. For that, we need pals with planting in their work suitability, and we also need pals with watering in their suitability. So excellent ones to start off with early on are lift monks and celeries. And I like lift monk because they plant and gather. Planting is for the seeds, and gathering is so that after the seeds are done growing, they are harvested and placed into the feed box. The very next thing I would do to expand on the space is by building furnaces. So I can go ahead and assign 2 pals with kindling, and then I can put an order to smelt my ore. Let's say I want to split the job. I can do 90. And then I'll do a max here. And now my pals will smelt the ore. Having furnaces in your ore farm is very likely ideal. Reason why is because you don't actually need ore to make anything really, whether it's weapons or pal spheres. You only really need the ingots. And that's about it. So we do have a pretty efficient ore farm. All our nodes are being farmed, and honestly, this looks like they're over farming maybe. Maybe you don't want to have 3 tombats, but don't worry. If you are not observing them, they're not going to be farming as fast. We have the ore farm. We also have our automatic food farm for berry plantation. We also have furnaces here for our ingots. And we also have a hot springs in case our pals lose sanity. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I did want to cover more topics like food, hunger, and sanity, and how you can get that better, how you can use bigger pals, like if you wanted to use Mamoris, or if you wanted to use Anubis, who does require 6 food. Food is very important, and definitely I want to be able to cover that clearly in a different video. I'll also do a video on Digtoys and how he is bugged when farming in bases. That's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Red Nude. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Peace.